guys are used to having your camera off and all of that, but I implore you to turn them on. We all have bad hair days. We all have situations where we don't want to be seen, but you're in a training. You are in a meeting. So that's where it starts. It starts with the head. So the heads are on here with their cameras on. So I know maybe today you weren't prepared, but here on out, hopefully if I'm on, I would love to see your faces, okay? So I just want to let you all know that straightforward. That is typically my expectation when I am training. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you all see my PowerPoint. All right, let's get this going. All right, let me make sure this comes up properly. Yes, it is. All right, so today we are talking about savvy supervision, okay? And what I mean by savvy supervision is we want to be strategic. We want to be savvy about what we do every time we take our kids out on an outing, every time we step outside of that group home door, and when we're there, when we're outside just hanging out with the kids, okay? We want to make sure that we're utilizing savvy, strategic supervision. It's already been stated who I am, so I don't need to get into that. This is me. I am a consultant and a trainer. And if there's ever any questions that you have thereafter, you can always reach out or let William know, and I will absolutely get with you. So the first thing that I want to do, and I think is vital, is defining what supervision is, all right? And this is interactive, so I'm going to ask you guys some questions. So first off, I'm going to read this definition. Supervision of children means guidance of the behavior and the activities of the children for their health, safety, well-being by this child care worker, group home staff person, residential staff person, whatever your title is, okay? And that we are within sight and sound of that child. So what are the things, can someone share with me some of the things that kind of stand out about this definition? What's one thing that stands out to you? I already have kind of given you the cheat code. So what's one of the things that stands out?
Guidance.
Absolutely, guidance. Thank you, Miss Crystal. Guidance. That is where the supervision lies, right? So our guidance is really behavioral guidance and physical guidance, okay? Very, very important. Supervision equals guidance. That's the number one point. Number two, what's another thing that we see in this definition as we progress through it? What else? Any other words that stand out to you?
Safety and well-being.
I heard you, Miss Crystal. What about somebody else? Who else was saying something? Was that you, William, or that was them?
I was going to pick on Manuel.
Supervision.
Yes, absolutely. So, okay, we talked about the supervision. Well, this is what I want you guys to gather. Staff are to have a focus on the following things: the health of a child, because potentially there could be some situations where a kid could have a reaction to the meds that they're on, reaction to something that you guys decided to give them and they're eating, okay? They could get overheated. We're going into the summer months, right? So we're going to focus on their health. The second thing that we want to look at is safety. Safety. What is the safety of this child? Is this environment safe for them? Are there some potential hazards there? But we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of that. The third thing is their well-being. Is this aiding in the well-being? I don't know if you guys know, but you are as a residential facility to be providing normalcy, right? Normalcy is best practice in child welfare. Well, that aligns with the well-being of a child. Does this activity cause enrichment, engagement with them and enhancing their well-being? Okay, so we're talking about staff are making sure they're healthy. Staff are making sure they're safe. Staff is making sure that the child's well-being is adhered to. And then the last thing that staff should be doing, staff should be within sight and sound of the child. Can somebody tell me what does that mean to them? Being in sight and sound of the children. And please let this be one of the direct care staff, please.
we're going to go ahead, since everybody's going to be kind of quiet today, we're going to go ahead and pick, and then you guys can say who. When I pick the first staff person to talk, you guys can pick whoever has the mic next. So I'm going to pick on Miss LaBrenda Caffey, one of our new hires, Miss LaBrenda Caffey.
I think that it means that you should be able to see those residents, the children at all times, and be close enough to where you can hear them.
Come on now, you talking right. Absolutely. We want to make sure that we have a visual on the kids at hand and other kids as well, because they could be a potential risk from some other youth or other adults around. And then we want to be in earshot. We need to be hearing what they're saying, what's going on. No, we don't want to be like vigilantes or some, the feds, as my kids will say that I'm the feds a lot of times, but we do want to make sure that we are hearing and seeing what's going on. And I'm just going to tell you all, I try to lead with a trauma-informed lens, and that does not mean that we want to call on you. We want you to be interactive. We want you to feel comfortable, right? That's important, because if we're leading with that in a meeting, we'll also model that when we're working with the kids, okay? So I do want to let you know, it is not necessarily our best practice to call on you, but that means we need for some of us to talk, okay? That's what a training and a facilitation is all about, all right? So if you're much more comfortable chatting, putting it in the chat, that is okay as well. But I need to hear from you, okay? Because I want to make sure not only are you getting this knowledge, that you're retaining the knowledge and then you can put it into action, okay? So that is my hope and my desire. All right, so let's get into the next aspect, and that is the 5 P's of supervision. All right, the 5 P's of supervision, and this is predisposing, precipitation, perpetration, protection, and predictive factors. I'm going to break them down, okay? And this is what we as supervisors or those that are watching kids should be always thinking about, these 5 aspects, okay? So predisposing, this is really looking at and making someone understanding their specified attitude, like what's really going on with this person, their attitude, their actions, that child's condition. So this is going to be happening when we get into our phases of what we do. You're going to have to think about, okay, what's going on with this child right now? What's the liability of this situation by this child with the actions they've been exhibiting, their current condition, their current attitude? What will they be like on this outing or while we're out in the community when a worker comes into this group home? Okay. Okay, the next one is the precipitating. And this is the cause or the event, the situation that could basically bring this person into suddenly having an episode. Okay, what's bringing this on? That's what that means. Like precipitation, when it starts raining, it's a little dew. You're like, is it gonna rain? Is it gonna rain real hard, or is it gonna be right? You're already seeing what could potentially be happening. Okay, that's what that's about. And understand, I'm gonna break this down. Then there is the perpetrating, and this means, okay, what could be the undesirable situation that could occur? All right. We're looking at that. We're looking at where are we going? What could potentially go on? Okay. That's what these 5 are. And then the last couple are the protective factors that come into play. Okay. So protective, we're kind of going to be on the defense. Or is this child on the defense? Are they resistant to what you're trying to give them? Are they resistant to even going on the outing? So that goes into where we're going to go when we get into our assessment piece. Is this child saying, I hate swimming. I don't want to go swimming. This is so stupid. I don't even know why we swimming. They're saying these things when you start talking about the outing. So what do I need to do? I need to think about, well, why is Will getting frustrated like this? Why is it automatically like a light bulb, a switch, right? You flip the switch and some whole new personality has come about? What is that about? Okay, well, there might be an underlying thing that has occurred. What this could have been a trigger for him, right? Maybe he had an incident in water before. Maybe he's not comfortable with his body. And so he's afraid to put on a swimsuit, right? There's always some factors there. And so we have to think about, how can I protect this child from potentially being attacked, having these triggers, being aggressive, being resistant to this activity? All right. And then lastly are the predictive factors. This is now the time that you as a care provider are making some adjustments. We're going to strategically be thinking about, what do I need to do to build this child up, to prepare for anything that's to come with this child, right? So we want to think about this ahead of time. All right. So that brings me to our first aspect, and that is assessment phase. And so this is when we're really thinking about, we've got to, okay, so let me give you guys an example. So this past weekend, what was an outing that you guys went on? Did you guys do an outing this past weekend? Can somebody share that was either there or facilitated helping with that outing?
Skating.
Toby, you're on mute.
Oh, you must have unmuted me. Okay. So we went skating. So we're preparing to go skating. We're going to be assessing. So when I say assess the youth prior to the outing, what we need to do is first off look at, okay, what's this youth's current condition? How are they feeling? Did they take their meds? Have they had an attitude all day? Have they had conflict with the staff that are potentially going to be on with us on the outing? Does this child have the ability to actually participate in that activity? We've got to think about all that. If you take a kid skating and they're like, I can't stand skating, I don't know how to skate, and we're not going to actually coach them through that process, is this going to be an enjoyable outing for that child? I don't think so. Is this child going to potentially act out, be withdrawn, try to isolate themselves? Or are you preparing that ahead of time? All right, I already know that Johnny is really, I mean, he's down to go, but he's really not into skating. So I know I'm going to have Johnny with a staff person that is going to be willing to be engaging with Johnny during that process. Does that make sense? I also have to look at, what are my potential triggers that could occur from these kids? Is it other youth that are going to be there? Is the environment overstimulating for some of the youth? So that's what happens in this assessment. We've got to know our kids. Our staff have to communicate from shift to shift. So say one second shift, or let's say the first shift person is ending, or persons, and the second shift are the ones coming on and taking them on the outing. There needs to be some communication going on. Hey, how has things gone? How has everyone been? I'm going to go down my checklist so I know, oh yeah, such and such has really had a tough day. They actually had a visit with their parents on Saturday, and it's been quite trying for them. They definitely have some vulnerabilities today. They had a phone call with their worker, and their worker told them that they're not going to be going home when they thought they were. Okay, now I already know this could be triggering for this kid. This kid could potentially act up, be in their feelings, right? Which is absolutely valid. So we've got to know, what's the youth's condition? Have they had any conflicts with another youth? Have they had some unfavorable responses to the directions of the staff? Do they have any health concerns? Are they going to have an inability to participate in the activity? And what are their potential triggers? That is what needs to go on in the assessment phase. The next thing that we're going to get into is strategic staffing. Determine who's the best suited staff for that shift and that outing. We need to be thinking about that ahead of time. Mr. Matt, whoever else is doing staffing, we've got to think about that. If we have a calendar, and I think it's Pete too, that's doing that, establishing these visits and these things, these outings. Well, we've got to think about who's on staff. If this is a staff that is maybe new, has not done outings, doesn't necessarily have a rapport with the youth, they don't really know those individual triggers and their personalities and behaviors, that would be setting the organization up, setting up everyone involved for this outing, for it to potentially be a whammy. So we've got to make sure we've got some strong, skilled staff persons going on the outing, on that shift. Weekends anyway, evenings, weekends need to be strong staff. I'm just going to be honest, because you got kids coming down off their meds, going into, they've had all this going on in the day. We're coming into the summer, so they're not really on a real strict, rigid, if you will, when I'm saying school-wise, routine. So things are a little bit more lax. So we have to take that into consideration. You're going to have potentially workers coming in and out prior to you leaving out for something as well. So we've got to think of the big picture, guys. It's so important to make sure staffing is appropriate for what we're getting ready to do. If you have a staff person that says, oh, I don't get down with swimming, I'm not willing to go in the water, I'm just going to sit out, they got lifeguards for that. Well, if you have a child drowning, or you have a child that's having a reaction, and maybe that lifeguard, who is probably some high school student that got certified for the summer, jumps in to try to potentially get this child out of this water to help them, and they have a trauma trigger, they touch them in a way that is triggering, and they start fighting that lifeguard, you're going to need to step in. Right? And so if you don't have a willingness to do so, there's a risk. So we've got to think about, do you feel comfortable on this outing? Who's the preferred staff? Maybe this staff prefers to be in the facility. Maybe it's a kid that absolutely just is not appropriate to go for whatever reason. They're not feeling well. So maybe that staff is best suited to stay in the facility, and the others will go on the outing. We've got to think about as well, have there been escalating behaviors in the facility, in the house, that are brewing and that staff are already overwhelmed with before the outing? So they're already in the mode like, I can't wait to get out of this house and be there so I can chill. Well, if I'm going into it with that thought process, we probably don't need to go, because I'm going to tell you that is definitely not the time to chill. That's the time to be on alert, to be focused, to be attentive. Am I making sense? Is everybody getting this?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right. And so the next thing that we really, really want to think about is the staff youth ratio. Determine, okay, how many kids do I have in the house? How many kids are going on the outing? And what potentially, how many staff do we need to have? Okay. Typically it's a 1-to-5 ratio for regular population. But if I have challenging youth or vulnerable youth, we need a 1-to-3. There could potentially be a child that needs one-on-one, but you determine that in your phase 1, in your assessment. Hey, we really, this is a new young man. We're going in a setting where there's going to be some younger kids. They have a history of X, Y, and Z, sexualized behaviors, being aggressive toward younger kids, whatever that is, okay? We may say, all right, Ms. Holt, can you just keep Matt with you? He kind of be your sidekick. And then you're going to also have Tova, Darius, and Will. Okay, then Darius, you're going to have Jaden, Tiana, and okay, so that's just what you do. You actually identify who you're going to have your eyes on prior to leaving. These are your 5. These are my 5. These are my 3. This is my 1. Why that's important is it's so easy to get distracted, right? A lot going on. If a potential fight breaks out with other youth or something else is going on, you already know you got an eyeball on your crew. You can gather them up. You already have discussed if something happens, we head right to the van. Van will be parked. You see where we're parked at? We're right next to the tree over there in the end of the parking lot. Go right there. Right? So those are all the things that staff need to be doing prior to leaving. We already have our game plan, okay? Our marching orders. So staffing ratio, 1 to 5 for regular population, 1 to 3 for challenging and vulnerable youth. And you might have to have a one-on-one if it's a child that maybe you don't really know that well and the potential risk is high. We might have a one-on-one staffing. And then secondly, we want to make sure we have our plan of action. What do we do in an event? There's maybe a fire drill or something that goes on in the facility that you're going to, that they know where to go in an event of an emergency, our established spot. Okay. This is another thing why I have this on here. Make sure you're, the kids, you don't have to have a billboard on. I know you guys have gear, but if you're not required to wear your gear on an outing because you don't want to, be on a billboard that this is a group home, maybe you all wear red shirts. Maybe you all have on blue shirts. Whatever that looks like for you all to be identifiable, do that. But I do not suggest necessarily having on that we are group home. These are group home kids. You already coming up in a van. People know, okay? So you don't need to be a walking billboard. But it is important that they can identify you. Oh, there go. Okay, there go Miss Ho. There go Mr. Darius. There go Mr. Matt. Okay. But if that is you guys protocol, continue to move forward with that. Number 4, this is so important. Who will lead? Establish a lead. Establish a lead person. And that person is going to conduct an environmental scan of the outing event location. So maybe say I am the lead. I've been established as the lead. I'm going into the organization to pay, to get everything, the wristbands, whatever, tokens, whatever it is we're doing. Before everybody even gets out the van, my lead is going to go in. Do that. I'm going to do an environmental scan. I'm going to know where the bathrooms are. I'm going to know where the common area is. I'm going to know the hot spots in that place to the best of my ability. No, you're not going to know everything, but you're going to try. You need to know where somebody can duck off if they have stolen somebody's purse, stolen a wallet, gone and got a little extra snack, trying to smoke a little weed, whatever, have some contraband on them, that they're ducking off to do it. So that's when, first off, we have this lead person that has already said, hey, Miss Manuel, you're going to be by the bathrooms. You're going to be over there by the door because that's also where the concession stand is and the games are. You're going to be over there in the common area where the skating ring is. But at the same time, in tandem with you having your strategic location, you're also going to have your eye on your 5 or your 3 or your 1. Does that make sense? So then you're able to see the big picture and the microcosm, that small group that you're responsible for. All right. So going back to that lead is paid, that lead has gotten whatever is needed for the kids to participate in the activity. You go back to the van. That's when we're going to have a conversation. We're going to talk. Hey guys, want to let you know we're getting ready to go in here. Here's our expectations. Don't say rules, say expectations. Here's our expectations. If you know you need something, you come to us. We're going to have a buddy system when we go to the bathroom, make sure, I know where you are, those kind of things. And kids are going to be kids, right? You don't want to be drill sergeants. But if two go in the bathroom and you know that they looking a little shady, you just go in, hey, everything cool? You check in. Oh, no, we cool, just using, okay, cool. It take too long. You need to be going in there and pulling them up out of there. Because I didn't have many things happen. They may be being victimized by another youth. They may be victimizing a youth. They may have some contraband trying to smoke, drink. They done stole something from the concession stand, stole something from somebody else. It happens. It happens. Perfect example. I took some kids to Cincinnati Reds game. I was about eight kids, I think it was. We were the actual umpires' guests, y'all. We went down, met the players, met the umpires. They gave us signed balls. Cream of the crop, outfits, shirts, hats, peanuts, food. When I say the whole works, all of it. Star-studded. Seats, we're at the third base. We can see it all. Umpires waving at us. What happened? I thought I knew my kids, thought I had a really good rapport with them. I always try to, when I do stuff like that, I would make sure I kind of knew the kids and knew how they maneuvered. Well, I had one that typically hadn't come out with me. Okay. She was already kind of fiery when we on our way. I already kind of felt something was there. So what I did was I put her with one of my leaders in my crew. Well, they get to go up to get their food. I'm sitting right there. I can see. Well, they duck off, with a Reds game, tons of people go into the, they even had money to shop, y'all. They go in there, steal. When I say tear the club up, steal all kind of stuff.
Oh, no.
So what happens is police have to come get me, escort us. I saw every aspect of the Red Stadium. I'm going to tell you that, even where they take the criminals. All right. And how embarrassing. All because my supervision was lacking. I knew I should have walked up there with them. I always had done that, but that one time I didn't. And the one time I didn't, here we are. So what did that do? That put the entire organization, Children's Services, on blast that these kids have come here and stolen from the Reds organization. It was embarrassing to the Umps Care program because we were the guests of the umpires. Then who else did it put on blast? Me as the responsible party that they trusted to take these children. So then they have to question, well, what was I doing? Why wasn't I on point, on my post, doing what I was supposed to do? All right. So we've got to think about those kind of things. The liability behind that. And I'll get into some of those legal implications after I finish with these strategies. All right, so we've done that environmental scan. Next is strategic designation. I kind of got into this with the environmental scan, but that lead person is going to position staff in the identified potential hotspots. Bathrooms, door, maybe I think about the skating ring. They have like a little smaller rink on the side, but it's lockers right there. So if you're standing in one spot, you can't see on the other side of that. Well, I want to make sure I have somebody closer on the end so I can see both of those areas. Okay. But again, you have to look and scan the environment to know, where do I need to be positioned so I can see my crew and see my designated area. Another situation, I also do a lot with sexual abuse. So there was a situation at a Springboro school, Springboro, that area. Well, it was with first graders. Gym teachers, real cool. They take the kids down, they're taking them down the gym. And kids were loving this gym teacher. Oh, all the little girls. Oh, I'm his princess. I'm going to tell you how you can be a princess. This is the kind of conversation. Everybody loved this teacher, loved this gym teacher. Well, this gym teacher was grooming and inappropriate with these kids. Teachers were bringing them down. Teachers were friends with this person. And what was happening is he had identified those areas where he could have one-on-one isolation with the kids. It was a little cubby area by where the lockers, not lockers, where the bleachers were and the water fountain. Kids would go get water, but the bleachers were covering it. Well, that's where he would do inappropriate things to the kids, rubbing their backs, first graders. And so people, this is the thing. People would say, something's a little different. The kids were saying little stuff. People noticed that things were a little inappropriate. Or this person was a little handsy. Kids were doing some inappropriate things and that they hadn't done before. But nobody ever said anything. Nobody ever was on point. No, this can't be the case. Nobody was thinking about what those hot spots were in the school, in the gym. Common area. So understand, far beyond just an outing, there are hot spots in the house. There are areas where you may not be able to see. So now we're coming back into the house because I feel compelled to say this. This is not a time when you're on an outing for staff to chill and kick it. I know it feels great to be out on an outing. I used to love having outings with my kids and children's services. And when I worked in a group home, I loved it. But this is your time to keep your head on a swivel, to be attentive to detail, to have a good time with the kids. But it's not a time for staff to be huddled up. I'm about to go to McDonald's and go grab me something, to be sitting back on their phone, got their earbuds in. No, because if you got your earbuds in and you talking on the phone, you watching the game, or you're watching TV, whatever, listening to music, you can't hear. You can't see. You don't know what's going on. You're not attentive. Very, very important. And then the last thing, we want to debrief the outing. What were the highlights? What worked? What was awesome? What did the kids like about it? Is this something that we need to bring back before the summer even ends, right? And then were there some vulnerabilities? Were there some things about this outing I like, you know what? I just don't think we need to go here. It seemed like at first they were having a good time, but then it was like, wah, and they slowly got bored, right? I remember taking, I think it was like 60 kids from children's services, teens. I always work with teens. And we went to, it was kind of a Get Air kind of place, but it was in Cincinnati. I mean, we drove all the way there. It was before Get Air came here. And so it was all good at first. We were going to be there for like 3 hours. It was something crazy too. Man, within that first hour, they were done. And so then we sitting there, then they were running them up. They doing stuff, people bored, they acting up, they touching each other, they hitting, they fight. It was horrific. So we needed to retreat and have a B plan, but we didn't. And so then we're standing around and we're getting frustrated. They're getting frustrated. Oh, let me tell you another thing. Facility was burning up. We already know when heat happens, aggression rises. Okay. So we've got to also think about the environment for the kid. All right. So you want to make sure to debrief that immediately after, or maybe, you know, if you guys have your meeting, it may be a time that can be incorporated. Hey, let's talk about the outing. What went well? What didn't work? What do you guys think that you need? Maybe the staff may say, you know what? I know you gave them $20 per kid for this outing, but we were there for so long. It was so hot. We really needed more money to get them another drink or another snack, right? Those are the kind of things you want to let the management and so know, so you all can be armed and prepared and equipped with what you need. Because honestly, you all are the hands and feet. And if you all are not comfortable to talk to your management about your needs, it makes it really, really difficult for you to be really effective. So that is very, very important, that debriefing and understanding, and your own vulnerabilities. Maybe say, I'm not equipped for that. I need a little bit more help when I go to outings. I think we should have had a fifth person, and then staff can know. That's so important. Oh, let me say this also. When you're in the vans, staff, it shouldn't just be both staff sitting in the front seats. You need to have, somebody a little further back so you can see what's going on, because potential things arise sometimes within, on the way to outings or back home when it's, dark. Okay. That's an important thing. And then lastly, repeat steps 1 through 6 for each outing every single time. Okay. And so lastly, I wanted to get into just 2 other points. Legal implications. We have to know that allegations can occur. And those are those legal implications for you as well as the organization, A Loving Heart. And so this is typically how allegations occur. You as the staff persons, maybe there's the strict, super rigid rules when you on shift, and you're just known to be extremely rigid and not necessarily adhering to the guidelines or the ways that things should go, or you're overwhelmed with the kids that you have and you're only doing your go-to, right? You're reverting back to those on your own personal skills, aside from doing what policies and procedures line out for you as a group home staff person. Another thing, there could be a mandated reporter, somebody that's just watching. Somebody outside rides up, another worker from another agency comes, brings a kid. Maybe they're out with their own kid at Get Air and you all are there, and they say, that's A Loving Heart. Oh, look at how those staff are with them. Look at how a lack of supervision that they have. Look at how they talk to the kids. Look at how they're all huddled up and paying attention to each other and not the kids. Okay. So there could potentially be a mandated reporter in the house, in the place, that could potentially bring on some legal implications to you all. Maybe simply the retention rate. Staff didn't come in. If you are on shift, you were supposed to go on an outing and staff didn't come in, you need to be calling somebody and saying, we need somebody else here because I'm concerned about my ability to supervise them to the level that you expect, because we don't have enough people on staff. How about stress? Just stress in general. The population, the group that you have right now, they are doing the most. And you're under stress. So you're already stressed out, or you came to work with your own personal stuff. And so it's impeding your ability to really meet the needs of the kids to your full potential. That could cause you to not be on point, and then could be a legal implication and allegation that could occur from the kid, another youth. Okay. What about the child may report abuse because of their own trauma. They had a trauma trigger. It wasn't even about you. It's something that happened. And kids do have that, guys. It wasn't even what happens with a trauma trigger. It takes them right back to that moment, that situation. You may not have been doing anything inappropriate, but they do that. So if we're on point, if we're doing what we need to do, we're able to document and say, hey, well, what happened was X, Y, and Z. I didn't even touch them. They just started doing this, whatever, hitting somebody. All right. So you're covered. But when you're not paying attention, when you're not on point, then it's your word against that kid. Another thing that could potentially happen and how legal implications can happen is, hey, when things happen in another group home, things happen at foster parents' homes, and it becomes the buzz. It becomes the thing. And so the child welfare system, now it's like, well, we're cracking down on this. All right. So then there's more stuff. Maybe something went to the news, right? So now you're under more watchful eyes. So when we put the right things in place, these things that we're talking about, I know sometimes you're like, all this talking, all these trainings. Well, it's a reason behind it. Rules are there because somebody has broken it. Somebody has potentially done something harmful, okay? So that's very, very important. And then the last thing is best practice, guys, when workers come to the house. We want to make sure we look like we're the staff and not another resident. So what is your attire like? I see you have gear. Make sure you wear it when you're in the house. That's very, very important. Have a badge, you have a lanyard or whatever that is. Make sure they don't come in, you got your feet propped up on the table, sitting back, laid back, eating a snack. Kids are all the way in another room. You can't even see visibly what's going on. 2 staff are on, one should be in one area, one should be in the other. So we have our eyes. Again, that same kind of, I got these 4, you got these 4. Same thing, wherever you're in or out, okay? You want to make sure you're watching your language, the way that you're talking. And this is in the house when people are walking up. You can hear, you got the window open, they can hear from outside. I know how the Stanford, and I don't know, I haven't been to the other house, but I know when I was a worker and I was coming and visiting kids there. So we've really got to think about how we're talking, what we're doing, the aesthetic. Are we keeping things clean and free of hazard? After they've eaten, are we making sure things are cleaned up? Are there rooms together? Because I always wanted to go and see where the kid was sleeping, where they were laying their head. So if I'm walking in there as a worker and it's looking like a crime scene, now I absolutely understand things don't have to be perfect. I know what a kid not cleaning up and this place is jacked up looks like. I know the difference, okay? And workers do as well. You know, does it smell refreshing? Okay, that's an important thing as well. All right, well, Pete, is that everything that you wanted me to touch on, or is there anything else? Any questions does anyone have?
Yeah, let's open up to questions, or any comments. I guess I'm going to start with my leaders, my A team. I'll start with Matt. Anything? What are your thoughts about this, and how, more importantly, how we may be able to use some of the things that we've learned today? How are we going to put this in practice? Matt, you talk about partnering, because say it again, Willie. I want to make sure I understood you.
Staff on, if you got 2 staff on shift and y'all got an outing, we'll say, well, I got like she was saying, well, I got these 4 and you got these 4, and then, but we be vigilant of the whole 8, but still we can partner. Also, we can pay main attention to
your
certain
4.
group.
Yep, and and quite frankly, it's easier to watch and supervise 4 than it is 8.
Yes, it is.
So now let me ask this question. And I'm gonna put this out to. I already heard from Ms. Chantel. I heard from Willie. I'm gonna put this out. I heard from Manuel. I'm gonna put this out to Darius. If you walked in, or Matt or someone or myself walked into the skating rink, I know that's where we go skating every Sunday, and you see 2 staff sitting together in the booth at eating food or whatever, what's wrong with that picture? And how do you correct it?
Well, they're not obviously spread apart, so that they have a equal opportunity to supervise different parts of the skating rink. And I mean, a way to resolve it is basically directing one of the staff to retreat to a different area or to a different spot inside the skating rink.
That's good. Yep.
But one of the things I was also going to say that I thought that was good in the training that we could implement, but it's got to be a desire. It's not necessarily. I mean, you can tell somebody, but I guess the staff member actually has to have the desire to do so. It's trying to pay attention to the kids and figure out what's a trigger and what's not a trigger. Trying to, you know what I mean, instead of reacting off their emotion, because a lot of times you come to work and let's say, like she was giving an example that you may want to take the kid swimming and the kid would get frustrated and don't want to go immediately. And it could be underlying reason behind that. Like she said, maybe they don't like to be seen with their shirt off, or maybe it's a trigger for whatever reason. But instead of the staff reacting to that particular kid and and an attitude with them, trying to understand what that issue is and figure out a way we can resolve it.
Right. Now, what's one tool that we could use? Let me see. Who else? Let me see. Chantel, I already heard from you. I'm gonna throw it out to either Matt or Crystal. What's a tool that we can use that we have at our disposal to be able to know what some of these triggers are with the kids? Even when we come in on shift. At a glance. At a glance, we make sure we put those triggers on that at a glance so we can know that. Yep. Anybody else?
I mean, really just proper communication between the shift change and everything like that. Like that goes a long way when it comes to how you can approach the next, like, or the kids, like when you're coming in and everything. I know, like, me and P3 and me and a couple other people have had conversations, like when we're switching shifts, like I'll give them the rundown of who's kind of been maybe the problem starter that day, or maybe the instigator that day, or something like that, or just something along those lines. It goes a long way, I feel like, communicating that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So we're going to finish up here. I have a few more things that are really kind of around active supervision, and again, this is the same components. This comes from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Setting up the environment, right? Staff should set up an environment so they can supervise children and always have access to them. It's the same thing we already talked about, grouping, right? So when we come in on Stanford or whatever, we got 8 kids on Stanford. The expectation is one staff has 4, the other staff have 4, and the way we look at that is, then at that point, you all will be responsible for doing the shift notes for your 4, right? So that's how we'll know. And we'll talk next week when we have our training next week. We'll talk through shift notes. But if you don't know how to enter shift notes on EMS, get with Matt, and he'll work with you through that. Even if we have to have a one-on-one training for that, those shift notes document that you've actually your 4, what's going on. Okay, we already talked about staff position. So those things happen. Set up the environment, right? Staff position, we talked about that. Staff should be carefully planned where they will position themselves to protect children from harm. So we've talked about that already. Great. Also, scan and count, right? How many kids you have, where are they? Just consistently and continuously scanning the entire environment. And this is especially important during transitions when we're moving from one location to another. Staff should always be able to account for children in their care. Again, continuously scanning the entire environment, knowing where everyone is and what they're doing. And then listening.
What was the first 2?
First 2 were
Set up the environment.
Setting up the environment.
And
so what is it?
What was that second one? Okay.
I want to ask a question real quick. I'm going to put it out to, because I guess I'm picking on Manuel and Darius today because you guys worked at the hot shift for the most part. What does that look like in setting up the environment at the group home? Let's use you, Stanford, as an example.
I guess it would be like setting up the games. Like we say we're gonna stay inside, it would be like setting up games in that common area.
Yep.
Absolutely. Preparing, stuff like that.
Right. Now, if I know that Peyton and Johnny aren't getting along when I'm setting up the environment, am I gonna sit Brian and John together?
No.
Exactly. That's also a part of this, a part of setting up the environment. Yep. Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right. Well, I certainly
I
go ahead.
have a comment.
Sure.
I just want to speak on as far as the supervision, having 2 staff, that's our goal, is to always have two staff, but sometimes we have had situations where we haven't always had two staff because someone may not showed up to their schedule. But also too, like when we go to Kings Island, if there's staff that would like to volunteer for those days, I'm not saying volunteer your hours because you will be paid, but if you all let us know prior that you would like to go, we can make that happen where you can go and be a third or fourth or fifth person on those days. I think because sometimes some trips require, more supervision.
And
Also,
can I say something, Miss Danielle? I didn't even know you were on.
Go ahead.
As far as like Kings Island is concerned, that is one of the places I never like when we would take. I mean, we would take like 100 kids to Kings Island for children's services teens. Never, ever, ever say, "Oh, y'all, this group can go by themselves." I just never did it because I don't care what it was. I just always I got my 20, my 10, and we rolling together and we come up with our plan, where we're gonna go, and we just hang together. Because when you just kind of let them run off, you just open the floodgates for something to occur. You are. So, the best way to do it is always just have a staff with each group. And just the thing about that is making sure they like that staff. That helps. If you put them with a person that they can't even stand, they're like, "Oh, we about to run off on them. I'll be back at the bus at 5, whatever." They'll take that risk. So make sure that we're matching as well. Who's hanging with who? And even the staff. Does this staff work well together when we're going on an outing, opposed to someone that they have a cantankerous relationship? Then yeah, it's not going to be beneficial to anybody.
Yeah, and I think that, again, for myself, like I love going to the zoo. I love going to Kings Island. But when we go with other, when we're not going with our family, when we're going as a job, we're here to work. So we're not here to, I'm going to go get my pizza and y'all go get on a ride. So we're here for the kids, and this is what we paid to do. So I just want to emphasize that if everybody show up on their schedules, then we'll be more effective of planning other things. We spend a lot of times on call offs. We spend a lot of time trying to find ways to have, not penalize people for not showing, but incentivize people for showing to work. But if we could get off of that and just work on, having better outings, saying, "Hey," and I think you just said that, Tova, like who works well together? Like we could spend more time on who works well together instead of just who's gonna show up. So if everybody could just help us with that this summer, just please show up to your shift. Maybe somebody is not showing up, and maybe you can have a conversation with them without, it being antagonizing, or just, be that role model instead of, yeah, we all calling out, or such and such calling out, so I'm calling out. So just work with us this summer and help us with that, because the kids are out of school. So our program in the summer, Mr. Peterson just said hot. It's more hot. It's more intensive in the summer. It's a lot of attitudes. They don't get a chance to go and be with each other at school. But we can have a beautiful summer if everybody just look at what they're doing and, be that model that just says, "I'm going to be that person that's not going to call off this summer. I'm going to take a break off, but I'm going to schedule it, and I'm going to make sure everybody has time to know that I am going to have my family vacation." We encourage you all to have your family vacations and take time out, but we just need time and to plan it, and not being in a chaotic world. Well, this is my schedule and nobody else's schedule matters because I already told you mine. But sometimes we do have to change them because people do call off at the last minute, and people do have family situations, funerals, crises, and things like that. But again, for the 10,000th time, please come and show up on your scheduled shift. And if you got a question and you feel like you normally are on that shift and you don't see your name on that shift, call me, call Peterson, call Matt, and say, something's wrong. I typically work every Friday and you got me scheduled off. Because probably is something's wrong, right? Am I right, Peterson? If somebody is typically on shift on Friday, that's typically okay.
Yep.
All right. And we definitely need help on Saturdays, Sundays, and probably Fridays.
And there was one last, and we did, Miss Murray, we did talk about the summer performance bonus, so everyone knows about that. And
Right,
again,
you
that's a
did.
way, again, to incentivize the, put some money in your pocket for showing up to work and doing your job, right? There was one last thing I wanted to share real quick on the active supervision, and we talked about this, but this last one after listening, right? Listening is like ear hustling too. Like listen to what they're saying. Like you don't have to comment on everything, but listen a little bit, right? See what's going on, right? And then the last one is anticipate the child's behavior. Let me ask, we got 2 kids. If you put he, him, and let's see, the other kid that just left,
ML.
ML together, and you just let them be, what's eventually gonna happen?
They're gonna get to fighting.
It's gonna be,
Yeah,
they don't get to fighting, arguing, or whatever, right? That is a perfect example, Manuel, of you anticipating a child's behavior. So now that you know what's going to happen, right, you can take steps to mitigate it or eliminate it, right?
Right.
But doing what? Anybody? What's a simple strategy to do to minimize that situation?
Yesterday, TH and AS wanted to go outside together, and I basically didn't let that happen because it was less than a whole day from their incident that they had. And I just kind of was like, you know what? No, maybe you guys can go one at a time. But for right now, I'm just going to have you guys kind of stick it apart. And if I can be with you guys, then I will.
Great. That's great. Miss LaBrenda, it's on you. I see that you got your hand up.
This was about the summer bonus thing. Because I don't work, like I'm looking at the schedule and I am off on, it seems like I'm off on every weekend. But I do work that Friday 12 to 8. Like, do I have to work both days to participate in that summer bonus?
No, but I think we'll look at the schedule. We can get with Matt and Crystal about what we want that schedule to look like. Do you have between 10 and 15
Yes.
hours a week?
Oh, yes,
Okay, yeah.
way over.
So as long as you have, yeah, you got to be at least 10 to 15 hours a week. And then if you're willing to work a weekend, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, or Friday, Saturday, or whatever the configuration is, we'll consider that. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. And we are the summer bonus performance bonus program begins June 1. We're gonna go rich. We're gonna go back to June 1. So if you haven't had any call-ins or anything like that, which I'm looking at everybody on the call, I don't believe, and I'll get with Crystal and we'll look at the schedule. And I don't believe we have in terms of for this one. We have.
Yep, we have.
Right. Let's talk about that offline and see because we may end up just doing a restart and starting it on the 7th. Just depends. But now
If they had we may can give them a